Hey guys, it's Kaya and welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be my July wrap up. So in the month of July, I read a total of 7 books. I read 4 romances, 2 fantasies, and 1 YA mystery. Okay, so the first book I read at the beginning of this month was Say You Swear by Megan Brandy, and I gave this one 3 stars. I did really enjoy it, but there have been better books that I've read, and I think that's a common theme throughout this month is that I enjoyed all the books, but there's definitely been better. This story follows Ariana and Noah's point of views. Is that right? Does Noah have a point of view in this book? Why? I literally can't remember majority of the things that happened in this book. So, like, I remember the main plots, because there was some crazy stuff that happened in this book, but why can I not remember if Noah had a point of view? Okay, so it was dual point of view. It follows Ariana and Noah's point of view, but the main characters are basically all of Ariana's childhood friends growing up, so it includes her twin brother and then his 2 best friends and her best friend, who kind of became a group of 5 going into college. And the 3 boys play on the college football team, and so she meets Noah through football, and she's basically in love with Chase her whole life, who's one of her brother's best friends, but she's known him since she was like, I don't know, 10 or 12 or something like that, and she's been in love with him all these years, but he doesn't feel the same way. And so finally she meets Noah, and it's like the first guy who really caught her attention after Chase, and the only one who could really hold her attention and like make her think about him instead of Chase. Noah is the most charming, amazing male main character. He was able to communicate, he cooks, he plays football. I feel like one of my big things in romances is there's always a miscommunication trope, 3rd act breakup because of a miscommunication that like could have been solved if they had just had one simple conversation, and I don't like that. The twist at the end, because there's always got to be something, can't just be happy the whole way through, was not what I was expecting. It was a little bit weird. Like, I was like, this is like a teen romance, and then had some really serious topics in it, which I do like. Again, I've always said that I like a romance better when there's like some underlying trauma and emotional storyline and side characters that are actually enjoyable. But this was like, it was weird. I was just like, okay, we went college romance, la da da, and then it was like, whoa. And if you read it, you know what I'm talking about. It was just like, what's going on? I feel like this is not the same story. It's okay. I still liked it, and I was crying at the end, and I was crying over rooting for them to be together, but it's still a 3-star because the way that it was written was a little bit immature. Like, some of the dialogue used and the descriptive words used, I feel like it was a little bit immature. And I do love YA, but this one just felt a little bit too young. However, the storyline and the characters I really liked, so it's a 3-star for me. The next book I read in the month of July was Powerful by Lauren Roberts. So this is the novella that comes between Powerless and Reckless. And I loved Powerless when I read it at the beginning of this year. I think I gave it a 4.5. I don't usually read fantasy. It was actually the first fantasy that got me back into the fantasy world and fantasy reading. Although I haven't read that much fantasy, I have a lot on my TBR, so that's kind of what sparked my interest. So Powerful follows the main character in Powerless, Peyton's best friend Adina, and her journey. Basically in Powerless, Peyton, the main character, ends up going off to these trials where she has to compete with a bunch of elites that have powers, and Adina is left behind in the slums where they both lived. And so it's basically her story of what she's doing while Peyton is at these trials, because we don't get to see her point of view at all in Powerless, except for when she is with Peyton and we get to see it from Peyton's perspective. So I really liked this. It gave Adina a bit more depth. Not that I ever didn't like her in Powerless, but I didn't really care about her, to be honest. So if you know what happened at the end of Powerless, then you know what happens at the end of this book as well. And so I feel like we really needed this one. That's all I'm going to say about that. I loved the love interest in this one. At first, I was like, I don't know about him, but I did really like him. It was a little bit insta-lovey, but you know what? In a magical world where like they could die at any moment, I think insta-love is justified. No, I really liked it, and I thought there was some good humor in here. Nothing will compare to Kai and Peyton, but they were they were a close second, so. And I gave this one a 4 stars. So not as good as Powerless, but it was also a novella, so I can't expect too much. It was really short. I got through it super fast, but I really, really enjoyed it, so. The next book I read was, of course, Reckless. Obviously, you can expect that after reading Powerful. I loved this. I gave this one a 4 stars as well. Again, I didn't think it was better than Powerless, and I rated Powerless a 4.5, so I gave this one a 4. I talked more in depth about my thoughts of this in my reading anticipated 2024 releases vlog. I did really enjoy this one. I thought their banter was great. However, towards the last third of the book, I felt like it was getting really repetitive. Like some of the things they were both saying to each other, I was like, you already said this, we already had this conversation, like this is all already, like I feel like I'm having deja vu. So that was one thing that I was like, okay, can we get a move on here? And there were some parts that were a little bit mundane, or I don't want to say boring because I still ate it up, but they were just traveling through different cities and they weren't really doing much, honestly. But I did hear that this one is kind of just like a transition book before the third one, so they had to get this story out. I mean, we needed to see what happened after Powerless. They couldn't just jump right into some crazy stuff in the next book, so I understand that this had to happen. So I'm really excited for the third one, and yeah, that's all I really have to say about it. I did really like it. Read Powerless if you haven't, that one's great. And the next book I read is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, and oh my god, you guys, this is a 5-star read for me. I absolutely loved this book. Like, it's a prized possession of mine. Again, I read this one in a reading vlog, but I have never read an Abby Jimenez book before this one, and yes, I know it is the third book in the Part of Your World series. I didn't know that before I picked it up, but they're interconnected standalones, so you don't have to read them in order, so it's fine. I can't believe I've been missing out on Abby Jimenez's writing this whole time, because this was amazing. There were so many good quotes in here, so many good storylines, so many good characters. I love when a romance can have an amazing romantic couple and romantic interest, but also have great side characters and a great storyline and underlying emotional plot and trauma and character growth and everything, all of the above. It was just spectacular. Like, I just love it. Like, looking at it now, I'm like, I wish I could just read it again for the first time. This book follows Emma and Justin. They both have this curse that basically the person that they date, once they break up, they go on to find their soulmate. And so they find each other online, and they basically decide that if they date, then their curses will cancel out, and once they break up, then they'll go on to find their soulmates. But maybe they're soulmates for each other. The side plot was not just background because the characters needed to have a backstory. It was a forefront in the book, and it made sense. It wasn't just thrown in there last minute. It was intertwined into all of the characters and how they are and why they are the way they are, and it was just so good. The ending was so good. I was screaming, crying. I don't know, I wish I could read it again for the first time. Like, it was just so good. So highly, highly, highly recommend this one. The next book I read was Funny Story by Emily Henry, and this was a highly anticipated read for me because I've loved every other Emily Henry book I've read. Happy Place last year was a 5-star read for me, absolutely obsessed, and Beach Read is another 5-star for me. Similar to Abby Jimenez, something I really like about Emily Henry is that she incorporates side plots and side characters and emotions and other things into the story that aren't just solely romance. Although I do love a fluffy romance, sometimes it's nice to have that deeper connection to the characters. I gave it a 4.75. I've heard some criticism about it online. I absolutely loved it. I loved it so much. I don't think I could hate anything Emily Henry writes, so maybe I'm biased, but I loved it so much. This book follows Daphne and Miles. Basically, Daphne's fiance and Miles' girlfriend are childhood friends, and they decide one day that they're in love with each other and go run off together, and Daphne and Miles are just left there like, what's going on? Daphne basically gets kicked out of her house because the new girl is going to move in, so she ends up moving in with Miles because he has an extra room. So that's kind of where the story starts off, and I was a little bit iffy when I first started. I was like, hey, am I gonna like this forced proximity, and they only got together because their exes are together? Like, it's kind of weird if you think about it, but I loved it so much. I love a friends to lovers. Now, I do love an enemies to lovers as well, but I do love a friends to lovers, and this was the epitome of that. They were able to become friends, grow together, get through this like sad period together, and it wasn't forced, it felt like. And I just love when they're able to develop banter as friends and not like they hook up and then they're forced to be friends after because they need to fall in love for the story. Like, I love how it was developed first and then the relationship came afterwards and it was natural. The side characters were great. I loved her friend that she made, and I love the setting that Emily Henry chooses. She always chooses a good small town, and I think that's just the best setting for a summer read. So I absolutely loved this one and would also highly recommend. The next book I read was Mile High by Liz Tom Ford, and I've heard some not so great things about this book. I've heard really good things about the series, but this book specifically I've heard not great things. And to be fair, I agree with them at the beginning. Like, the main male character was horrible, very unlikable, but if you keep reading, he's meant to be that way at the beginning. He's meant to come across that way, but once you start seeing his backstory and his childhood and the people he's friends with and everything about him, it all connects and he is actually great. I actually really like him. Same goes for the female main character. I didn't love her at first. I thought she was kind of too much, but again, really ended up liking her at the end, and I love them together. So I gave this one 4 stars. So this book basically follows Stevie and Xander. So Xander's is a professional hockey player and Stevie is the flight attendant for his team plane that they take when they go to travel around for the NHL. So it's kind of like a forbidden romance because she's not allowed to fraternize with the players and he wants her because she can't have him. I really liked it. I think if you really hate Xander's in the beginning, just keep reading, push through. If you get to like 40-50% and you still really hate him, then you can stop. But I've heard really good things with the next 3 in the series as well right off the bat. So if you really don't like Xander's, you can skip this one and go to the next 3. But I would say give it a try because I really ended up liking it at the end. So. And the last book I read in the month of July was The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and I've had this book since December of last year and I've had it sitting on my shelf and I just haven't picked it up. I've heard great things about it. All the booktubers I watch have talked about it and raved about it, and I finally picked it up. It's described as Criminal Minds for the YA world, and that's the perfect description. Serial killers and teenagers solving crime. I don't know, what could be better? So this book basically follows 5 teenagers, but it's told in the point of view of Cassie, which is one of the girls, and they all have these natural gifts, things that they can do. So Cassie can kind of profile people as well as Dean. Michael can read emotions, Leah it can detect lies, and Sloane is crazy with numbers and equations and everything like that. And so the FBI recruits these teenagers to help solve crimes, but it goes deeper than that, and I don't want to spoil anything, but I will say that some of the crimes maybe get a little too personal and things get a little crazy. There were some plot twists that I didn't guess. I did guess the ending, but I still loved the ending and I still thought it was great even though I guessed it, and I wasn't disappointed at the fact that I guessed it because when I guessed it I was like, no way she's gonna do that, and then she did. So it wasn't like I was like, oh, I got it. No, I was eating it up the whole time, and I actually started the second one. I'm not done it yet, which is why it's not in this wrap up, but I immediately went into the next one, which I don't usually do with series, so that's how you know it was good. I gave this one a 4 stars. So same thing, I really enjoyed it, but I do think that I've read better books. But I think that one of the books in the series could be a 5-star. Like, I think that as I grow more with the characters and grow more with the storylines and learn more about them, that it will become a 5-star. And I do think that this has potential for a 5-star series, even if every single book in the series isn't 5 stars. But I did really enjoy this one, and if you have it sitting on your shelf, pick it up. You won't regret it. It's such a fast read. It's not very long. And I love Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Like, if you read The Inheritance Games, you're gonna love this. So those are the 7 books that I read in the month of July. As I said before, it's kind of a common theme that most of them were 4 stars, and I loved all of them. They just weren't the best books I've ever read, other than Just for the Summer, which got a 5-star because it was impeccable. And I do think that Funny Story and Reckless would have got 5 stars had I not read Happy Place and Powerless, because those 2 were better, and I'm comparing them to the other works from that author. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if there's anything else you want to see from me, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!